welcome to the Medicine Mermaids podcast, stories of womb, water, and womanhood. We are your hosts, Naomi Maharaj and Naomi Ring. In this podcast, we're here to share real stories on all things women's health, embodied spirituality, and ancient feminine mysticism. We value authentic, sovereign expression, and our greatest hope with this podcast is to awaken the unique medicine that lives within each of you. The title of today's episode is Dance as Prayer, the devotional path of meeting God through movement. And now to introduce ourselves, I am Naomi Ring, an integrative somatic healer, grief doula, and astrologer supporting women to embody their wholeness and root into who they truly are. My main tools are evolutionary astrology, family constellations and trauma healing, and the Akashic Records. I integrate ancient practices, devotional dance, and subconscious reprogramming to guide women on their journeys home.
And I'm Naomi Maharaj, a women's holistic health practitioner, devoted to guiding women on the path of self-reclamation and embodied sovereignty. My work weaves together body image healing, womb care, and female health through modalities like clinical herbalism, holistic pelvic care, psychosomatics, and subconscious reprogramming. I support women in remembering the divine beauty that they are and attuning to the deep wisdom and medicine within their flesh. So, welcome to our 8th episode of the Medicine Mermaids podcast. And this is really exciting that we've gotten this far. And this episode is really special one for us. I mean, they're each very special, but this one is especially special because today we're talking about a topic that Naomi and I have cherished since we were young girls, which is the medicine of dance. As you'll see in this episode, we're going to share our own personal stories of how we've found dance to be not just a form of moving our bodies and of exercising, but a way of connecting to the divine, and how dance and movement of the body allows us to be in prayer through movement and a form of meditation through movement. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Perhaps you are a soul dancer like each and every one of us here listening, and that you take something away from this episode, that something resonates within your heart chords, and that you leave this episode just wanting to dance if that is your heart's medicine. So as always, Naomi and I have a few questions prepared to just warm up the conversation and to just get going. And so let's begin. So Naomi, on this topic of how dance has evolved throughout our lives and how we've come to this place of dance being medicine, dance being a form of prayer to God, what was your experience growing up with dance and how has your relationship to it changed?
Okay, thank you. So excited to talk about this. I feel like dance is just like my biggest pleasure in life. And I can say that growing up, it definitely felt that way as well. It was certainly different from nowadays, but there's the core of my relationship, I think, to dance has not changed as much just because I remember myself as a child like just the most excited to dance, to be in a group container where we're all moving towards like the same direction and expressing and like that part of dance, just like getting to be ourselves and just like the joy that comes from movement, I think has always lived within me. Um, so as a child, I was telling you that last time that the first time that I like really saw dance as like, I want to do this, I want to get into a certain type of modality, right? Is when I was 5, I was invited to this wedding of my kindergarten teacher and she tap dance. And I was mesmerized by like someone making music with their feet. Like just the whole like there's like this vibration in tap dancing, and of course when you like think of tap dance or if you've seen tap dance you don't immediately connect it to like, oh, prayer, oh, devotional, oh God, but I feel like there's so much going on there. And we'll get to that later. It really depends where we're coming from when we're approaching dance. But long story short, it took a few years until my mom put me in tap dance. I danced from the age of 9 to almost 13. As you all know, maybe you heard from the other podcast episodes, I moved a lot as a child, so I didn't get to dance every single time in every single country I lived in. But yeah, my time in Miami was like the happiest. I mean, my relationship to dancing was like every day, please and more. Like the only day I was not dancing was Sundays because the studio was closed. And I think like for me it was a devotion. Like all I wanted to do was go to my dance classes. So in that sense, right, there's like that devotion to the practice that was there. But of course, and this is a strong difference, even before I started dancing, like I think as a child we love to perform. And the focus in the dance school, of course, was to form us and to support us into technically becoming better dancers and into knowing how to perform on stage. One of my teachers used to say, smile, and so it was all about smiling and keeping the smile. And if you make a mistake, you continue because no one's gonna know. And so, like, how to carry yourself on stage, the dressing up. And I think all of that is super super important as well and beautiful, and it can be a lot of fun. But of course, like, yeah, I didn't grow up like being a temple dancer, Um, even if I could go in a space within myself that was like feeling the unity of the group and enjoying with so much pleasure and devotion dance, I wasn't taught dance in that way. That came later in my life. So as a child, of course, we would practice all year long for our end of the year like recitals. And my big excitement was that I was going to be in 5 different dances and have all these costume changes. And, I'm tap dancing and I'm doing ballet and jazz and hip hop and I'm in musical theater. And, like, of course, again, I think having structure and having discipline and being taught like movement that's more choreography has a special place and an important place in then like your foundations as a dancer that help you go into those depths that we're going to talk about. But yeah, I think that's how my relationship to dance started as almost any child dancer who just loves to dance. But that love and joy was already there. Like the fact that that was my biggest pleasure in life, like you could tell since I was very young. And it is what led me to seek dance again once I was 18. Even though I had a pause again, like I did definitely start searching for different kind of dances. Like I went more into like ethnic dances, I went into like West African dance, belly dance, Persian dance, and so on. I'm now wondering if this is where I keep on sharing that evolution. I guess so, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, because I guess the question goes into like how does the relationship change? So I'll get into now my more adult years when I stepped back into dancing, because from age 13 till 18, I kind of had a break in dance. I didn't want to, but again, I moved so much. I didn't have any kind of stability in one country. I think from age 13 till I was 18, I basically moved to 4 times, five. Yeah, I moved a lot. So I didn't dance in those years like formally. So by the time I was 18, I came to Israel and I seeked at first like pole dance. So I was like doing all the sexy like pole dancing and on the floor work and the heels and whatever. Sure, it was cool. It didn't last long. Not because I have anything against it, just like I do not have that kind of upper body strength. Like being a pole dancer is hard work, and I was getting quite hurt. The bruises are real. And also I entered the army, just the reality of being an Israeli citizen. You're kind of part of that system, and you go in. So I didn't have the time nor the capacity to keep on doing it. Once I got out though, I I began African, like West African dance. I was part of a group. So it was like a tribe, and there's live drumming, and you're literally moving. Like you're one with the drums, you're one with the band, you're one with your team. Like there's something there that was different. The same with like the Persian dance, the Sufi whirling, all the kind of modalities that I began going into had something that was more embodied, and it had some sort of connection to prayer for me, at least. It began feeling like I'm in a trance, like I'm being taken into something that's bigger than me, through which I can connect to God. Like literally, Sufi whirling, you're just spinning around in your own axis and you are melting away, like you're diffusing, you're transmuting, you're just, they're big words, but I literally mean them. You have to be constantly washing away and releasing your fears, right? Like anyone who listens usually to me telling them that I'm like, whirling and for an hour, they're like, how did you not get dizzy? How do you not fall? And it's literally you're just constantly like letting go and letting go and letting go. When one of your feet is like completely anchored to the earth and the other, like your hands are extended to God, and it's the whole time it's just this like meditation, that you're there. You're there to be in devotion and complete release and surrender to God. And I think that literally opened the channel for me to connect to any form of dance, any expression that I choose, even if I go modern dance, improvisation, even if I twerk dance, even if I'm in my yoga practice, whatever I was doing in those years, in the last, 10 years, basically, 12, whatever. Um, there was that infusion of what I learned from, yeah, the Sufi world as well, and the holistic dance language from one of my dear teachers, Zola. Um, there was a lot there also for me to learn, and from a teacher, Miriam, and like just, yeah, meeting women that are considering themselves temple dancers and that have so much to bring and that support. And just to close this off, I think what started it all though was actually not from a dance modality at all. It was when I was in the army, I was going to workshops over the weekend. Whenever I could get out of base, I would go to the desert and meet a teacher of mine called Sugandu. And she is, she was teaching and giving workshops on all the chakras and the chakra system and, childhood deconditioning and, root chakra work. And like for every single chakra, she had a workshop. And I later like trained with her and everything. But in the first ever workshop I went, that was like actually like a weekend retreat, there were moments where she would put music and we were meant to dance and freely express. And I remember just not knowing how to not make a choreography out of it, not knowing how to not be repetitive to each side and kind of like perform my dancing because I'm the dancer, you know? And in that weekend with all the like Osho meditations and just her presence and everything that I received there was like, you are not the dancer, you're here to be danced, right? Like be danced, be moved. And there was this like dynamic Osho meditation that we would do in the mornings and Kundalini meditation that we would do in the evenings. And in both of them, there's a part of the meditation, they're active meditations. So in both of them, there's a part that you're meant to just dance, but you're not meant to be the dancer, you're meant to be danced and like let that energy move through you. And it was like meeting myself there and kind of washing away that need to be perceived as the dancer and to be good at it or to be any certain way and just kind of like feel how the music is moving through me, like how how do how am I being moved, how is it entering my body, what is my body telling me, how it's hard to explain honestly like right now, but I think you listeners, I hope you get it. That just changed my whole view on dance, and I think it has forever impacted and changed my relationship to it. Even when I go to a dance class nowadays, which I still do, I'm part of a modern dance group, and we're building choreographies, and like I have a solo coming up and I'm gonna be again on stage after years and I'm super excited. And yet my whole approach to it is just so different. So thank you for listening. That was that was that.
Nice. I hadn't heard the like beginning to end. I've heard like bits and pieces of the
Yeah.
story, like as we've been friends over the years and preparing for this episode, but it was really cool to kind of hear, the ups and downs and how, and honestly, as you'll hear in a second, so many similarities in our
Yeah.
personal discoveries with dance, like the light bulbs, like not word for word, but so similar. So it's really cool. Of course, the universe brought us two together. And like as you were sharing, I was like, of course, Naomi and I were eventually going to be brought together to start a, movement dance school retreats business. And that's the direction, spoiler, that's the direction that Mermaids is going, right? Naomi and I came together for completely different reasons and we've been kind of on this journey. The medicine mermaids have been moving through us, and I think this episode is it's kind of a bit of a spoiler of the things that we wish to create together in
Literally,
the future.
literally.
Yeah.
Which is funny because
So
we connected through this to begin with. Then life took us like for a while apart, and now we come back to this, you know? So, yeah. Yeah, for all of
totally.
you who don't know, like the first time Naomi and I met was like in a feria in a market in the US, and we spent a lot of time talking about dance and how we have these dreams of teaching dance and what kind of dance. And so it's just to me it's incredible how we've circled back and we're like, yeah, let's allow ourselves to bring that passion into this world. I want to hear how your experience growing up with dance has been, even if I know bits and pieces, I still want to hear the full story, and how your relationship changed. So, yeah.
Totally. So I also grew up from a young age just being thrown into a lot of activities. My mom put us in ice skating and swimming and all these different things, and I never wanted to do it. I just did whatever I was told to do. And then she put me and my sister in ballet. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was super boring. I thought ballet was super boring. I thought jazz was super boring. I thought tap dance was super boring. But I was put into all of these, I guess, more classical styles of dance to learn technique. And over time, I started to like it just because I just did. I think I started to feel confident in my body as I started progressing and I could see that I was getting better and advancing and getting feedback from my dance teachers. And when I went onto point, when I was, how old was I? I was maybe 12. Before I got my first bleed, I was on point. And that was such a big moment for me. It was almost like, oh, now I like ballet. Now I like ballet because I passed a threshold and now I can actually do more advanced movements and I started to feel confident in myself and in my body. And then I got super obsessed with ballet. Like I was buying all these books about ballet and learning about like the professional dance world and American ballet companies and I wanted to be a professional dancer.
Wow.
And then I remember at one point I was about 12, 13, my dad asked me, um, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or my mom asked me, and I said, oh, I want to be a professional dancer. And my mom said, hear that? Hear that, Dad? She wants to be a professional dancer. And I remember his response as a classic Indian father would be, he didn't say no, but he was just silent. And I could tell from his energy, like, there's no way in hell my daughter's going to be a professional dancer. And I forgot about that for many years. Like, that wasn't like this big traumatic thing. But looking back, I do remember feeling in my body, oh, I guess that's not the path for me. Being a dancer or being a creative isn't the path for me. And taking a step from dance for just one moment, I also have been an artist my entire life. Like, I actually feel more comfortable painting and drawing than I do dance. But I'm blessed to have been put in multiple different activities from a young age. But it was
Just
a
want
similar
the
thing with that.
listeners to know that you are an amazing painter and artist. I just need them to know that because I've seen her work and it's incredible. Okay, sorry.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Naomi. I feel red. But I think that that moment with my dad created a rupture, not just dance, but just being a feminine, creative being. That's not a path that I can follow it as a career. I was a young girl, like I wasn't even thinking about jobs or thinking about work, but it marked my life. And then I continued dancing and I continued doing art, but it was never the same way, I think. It was always just a hobby. It was just for fun. It was just because, how to pass time. And then I continued with dance all through middle school and then I advanced. I started taking on lead roles. I was Alice in Alice in Wonderland at school. Like I was in the corps de ballet for my dance school. I was in the Nutcracker. Like I was doing all these things. But then at one point I just got bored. I was like, okay, I feel like obviously I could do so much more. I'm become even better in ballet, but I want to do other things with my body. So I quit ballet very suddenly. I just quit from one day to the next. And I started doing taekwondo. I started doing martial arts. And I started doing more masculine forms of movement. And I loved it because dance gave me so much power and it gave me so much agility and so much flexibility. I don't think I've ever felt as powerful as I did when I did martial arts. But I also cut that short because I soon went to high school. And then in high school, I wanted to be part of a team. I wanted to do something at school and have teammates. I was feeling that loneliness because dance and martial arts, they're very there's a group element to it, but it's not the feeling of a team. I wanted that. So I started track and field, and long story short, that charted a new path for me. It charted a new path for my body, a path that I'm still walking because that sport gave me an injury that today I'm still dealing with my spine. I injured my spine, and to this day, I'm still navigating that. And because of that injury, dance has also been very hard for me because I've dealt with chronic pain since I was like 17, 18, and I'm 28 today. And then after that rupture with dance, I spent many years not dancing. And I went to university, and university was an interesting time, just like, what am I doing with my life? Do I want to be in academia? The ups and downs, all of that. And I was living in the UK, I was living in Scotland, and Scotland was where I had this big awakening, and I started connecting with the divine within me, the divine around me. And the UK I found to be very open with movement and dance. And then I started doing ecstatic dance classes while I was there. I'd never heard of that before. Like you, I'd only known dance as performance, dance as technique, dance as structure. You learn this technique, you learn turnout, you learn to passe, you learn to, right? You learn to do specific techniques with different parts of your body. Like my body had been molded by ballet.
Yeah.
And now suddenly I can just be in free flow without choreography. It was a whole new world, but it was extremely important, I think, in my path and in your path, and extremely interesting to suddenly be like, okay, now I can do whatever I want, and this music is playing, and I get to relax and do what I want. Like it's really hard to explain for
It is.
someone who I guess has had technical dance training to suddenly go the opposite side of the spectrum and just do whatever you want. And then I spent some time, one of my summer breaks, I went to Costa Rica and I stayed in this eco community. And there was a 3-day dance retreat that I did there. And that also opened me up to dance as trance, right? So the ecstatic dance movement brought me up to be like, okay, dance doesn't have to be performative. Dance gets to be expressive. Dance gets to
Yeah.
be for me. It gets to be my own internal journey. I get to close my eyes and feel the movement. And then when I did this 3-day workshop, we basically did 5 rhythms for 3 days. So for those of you who don't know what 5 rhythms is, 5 rhythms movement or 5 rhythms dance is a style of dance teaching that is non-technical, but it takes you on a journey of the soul, I guess, where you're given 5 different rhythms. I'm not going to be able to name them all by heart, but they're basically just building up to this moment of chaos, which is just free, crazy, primal movement. And then it takes you back down to a state of integration. And we did these 5 rhythm movements for 3 or 4 days. And at one point, we would be in the 5 rhythms and she'd be playing the music, and suddenly the song for chaos would start. And I noticed that my body was moving itself. Like
Mm.
I wasn't the one making the movement. At the beginning, it was. I'm like, I'm deciding how my body moves. But then at one point, I'm like, wait, my arm is moving itself. Oh my God, my torso is doing something. I'm not in control of that. I'm being moved, like you said. Like the dance was moving me. And I'd never heard of that before. I didn't know that was a thing. It just started happening.
Yeah.
And I started having these like visions with my eyes closed. I was like seeing owls and I was seeing things, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is a spiritual experience that I'm having." And it was so incredible and scary and exciting. And that was that. I just had that experience, and the retreat ended, and that was it. And I didn't have an experience like that for a long time after. Every now and then I would go to ecstatic dance, but I also moved a lot. I
Mm.
moved a lot. Wasn't in the same place for too long, so I didn't get to like fully deepen into that 5 rhythms or any of that. And then yeah, time passed, and then dance came back again when I moved back to Miami. And when I moved back to Miami, I was like, I want structure because the while dance teaching can give too much structure, like too much technique. On the other side, what I experienced was there's too much free flow, and
Yeah.
I want to feel strong in my body again. I want to feel like I'm building towards something, like I'm growing as a dancer. So I want that balance of free flow with the structure. So then I started dancing at Showstoppers Dance School in Miami. It's like not pre-professional, but it's like the dancers there dance with like Bad Bunny, and like you find the most incredible professional dancers, but it was more street dance. So like hip hop, reggaeton, afro, femme funk, that sort of thing. And I craved that. Like my body craved structure, but that was also open and free because street dance is way more free than like technical classical forms of dance like ballet. So I did that. It was fun, but also it brought up that stuff of like dance as performance again, like who's the best dancer in the class, right? Like who are the best dancers who we film the video and post on Instagram, which I
Yeah.
personally don't like, but it was part of that world. It was really fun. I spent a lot of time, just feeling strong again and feeling fit and like seeing my evolution as a dancer. But again, I moved. As always, Naomi and I were third culture mermaids who
Yeah.
swim all over the seven continents and
Constantly moving.
constantly moving. But yeah, that's basically been my journey. And now living here in Brazil, like my body I can tell just seeing the things that happen in my life, how my body wants me to dance. My soul puts things in my path so that I always return to dance. And that's exactly what's happening. I came to Brazil wanting to be a surfer and wanting to longboard and do all of these really fun things. But once again, my spine, injuries, pain, my body is bringing me to dance to heal my spine. And I've been so scared of moving for many years. Like I've been scared of moving the wrong way or hurting myself or
Uh,
even just snaking with my spine. Like I
Yeah.
feel pain and I know this is bad for me. I shouldn't do it.
Mhm.
But like we're talking, the whole point of this episode is to say that dance is a form of healing. It's a medicine. It's a way of connecting to God. And I think I've been closing that door. Like every time it opens, I close it. And then it opens and then I close it. There's a part of me that's going through this journey of feeling safe um with dance as a form of
Yeah.
movement. So anyways, I've spoken a lot. Um
No, honey, we are giving medicine. And this is, yeah, you touched on two incredible things, like the whole needing also structure within the flow. Otherwise, it's too much freedom. I love that. And I think it's so important. I would not say that only in the free flow forms you find God. I actually believe that we need a container, a safe container. And I think in dance, it translates to having the foundations, having that inner strength, having, forms that teach you some sort of discipline, right? And because of that, we actually get to go deeper into movement and get to be even more expressive and more open and more like letting go into it because there's a container to hold us. Otherwise, I don't think it's even possible sometimes. Um, it would not have the same form, and form is crucial, I think, actually, to the whole process. So I think our journeys are wonderful in that way, that we learned form and we kept on learning form, also for me, African dance is nothing but form and rhythm put together and a lot of soul, and I think it's a great combination to have um, when we're dancing and a temple dancer, if you go back, like there is form, there's unison, there's like a deep discipline and devotion there. And within that you find that beauty of then being able to surrender and just let go into it because there's a form there holding you. So I just wanted to like
totally,
and
totally,
emphasize that more. And the second thing you shared, I kind of
totally.
forgot now what it was that I wanted to touch on, but you know what? That's fine. I'm betting that when we continue the conversation, it will come up, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't. So,
Totally. I'll just say this. A few years ago, Naomi and I, we created this offering called Sirens Cove,
mm,
and we were doing dances with each of the four orishas that we work with, the Mothers of the Waters. And I think it was Nana, right, that you taught us the Sufi whirling, right? I'd never done it before. I'd never done Sufi whirling before, but I know my soul has Sufi whirled before because as soon as Naomi explained it and we started, I was like, oh, I know this. Like, my soul knows this. Like my body may not have done it, but my soul has done it before. And I'll just say Naomi is an incredible teacher. Like she's incredible at teaching the technique while also like expanding it beyond the technique. Like the technique is the gateway to create consistency and structure in the body that allows for the like transcendental experience. And yeah, so just putting that out there, I'd never done it before because what I love about your story is like you went from classical forms of movement like myself, but you also went to other parts of the world like Greece and have learned these other styles of movement that aren't street, that aren't technical, but that are deeply spiritual. Whereas my spiritual dance experience has been like spontaneous and by itself, just like I'm in an ecstatic dance in California and suddenly this. But I love that your spiritual dance experience has also been with other teachers, with other medicine women, with other temple dancers. And I am so inspired by your story and I learn a lot from it. And so getting that one chance to do that Sufi whirling with you was really incredible. So
Oh,
just putting
thank
that out there for future dancers who will be joining us.
thank you, love.
Naomi's
Yeah.
incredible.
I think I definitely have had the joy and I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity, and to have chosen, to go to places like Turkey and Greece and Africa and, just like also here in Israel, just the amount of teachers that come here also that are brought here. I think in this country, like it's incredible how much people also seek to learn like deep spiritual modalities. And there's like all the Kabbalah and like I think here there's like just all the religions too. So it's not closed off just to like Judaism. There's a Sufi festival here every year, and I've attended multiple times. And so like it's just rich in culture, this country. And so whether I was here or traveled, I've had just so many amazing opportunities, to encounter just spaces of feeling again, remembering what is the temple dance, and remembering that dance has always been part of temples, of churches, of religious places, and worshiping, even if it has been forgotten or banned or put aside. And I love that we're gonna now go into that. So let me give you back the mic and you can lead us in.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next question is exactly on this topic. How has religion or religious people in your life impacted or influenced your experience of movement as a way of connecting to God?
Yeah. Oh, something tells me like I want to start with my dad for like a split second, because this man never, like this man, my father. I love my dad. He has passed away 12 years ago, but he left the most beautiful imprint in me, because um, the very few moments he would dedicate like time to me was when he would suddenly be like, dance with me. And for the love of God, he had no rhythm. I mean, I kind of feel like he had rhythm. My mom tended to say that he has no rhythm and that he like thinks he has rhythm. And according to him, I was his only daughter and the only person in the family who has rhythm. He had like this like pride, and was very proud of like me being his daughter when it came to like dance, because he valued the expression. And whether he was good at dancing or not, we're gonna leave that aside now. I felt his passion and the way he swayed, and he would close his eyes and he would like sing off tune, and like not at all with the rhythm, but like he was just in it. And seeing a man who was so businesslike, so structured, so angry, so like he was such a different man, but when he danced, he like melted into something that was like unrecognizable. And I think that's just, to me, it shows the power of dance, the power of like expression, and that soft, like when you give into it. So I wanted to start with him because I think he didn't teach me necessarily through words or like literally passing on a teaching of like through dance you find God. I think he just showed me in very subtle ways that there was something there to surrender into. So I think that's a way that I was impacted and influenced in a positive way. And then there's like the other side, where nothing to do with my father, but I have I love my cousins and my uncle, but they have many times hinted this from my mom's side. Many times they have hinted that dance is not the way to God. And I know that there's many people who believe that, like, when you're dancing, you're just exposing, and it's like, just, I mean, yeah, they come from a more uh they're Jews who believe in Jesus, so there's more like this Christianity aspect to them. My family's like all Jewish and not at all like that, and I don't want to blame the Christianity aspect to it, but just like the way that they grew up was like dance is a sin. And that's how, my aunt literally, we had a conversation 3 weeks ago where she explained to me that her parents taught her that dance is a sin, and this is how she has always seen it, and that she's sure that that's not for her, that she can listen to me and understand that to me it's that way, but this is just how she grew up, and before that, my uncle now passed away all of a sudden, like 2 months ago, but he once when we were having a talk about God, for him, it's like only through reading the Bible and praying you will find God. But there's no way that like my dance is the same thing. So this is like comments that I've had in my environment, that I don't think they discouraged me or influenced me in any bad way, but of course there's a part of me that sometimes feels like, am I going to be judged if I share my expression and movement? Because this is for me like a way that I meet God again and again. This is for me a path of devotion and prayer. This is something I can't explain, and I'm completely just in trance, in devotion, in surrender. Like I it's almost like if you don't experience it, I don't know if you'll understand it, and that's okay, but I have so much more to say. I feel like we should just have the conversation, and I want to give you the mic and just kind of go more back and forth and build it up, because yeah, but it's I think to conclude that, I think it saddens me that dance is many times seen maybe in a more negative light. Depends what kind of dance, right? I've also been a yoga and twerk teacher because I studied yoga when I was like 21 till 23 for 2 years in a row, and then I was, always good at like all kind of like Latin dances and twerking and, shaking my booty, which I believe somatically, like we need to shake. And, I also studied belly dance teaching. And so I decided one day to mix it all together. And yeah, little bit rebellious here. I've always been that way. There was a comment I remember now, the second thing, when you shared about you being super bored with these like more classical modalities. And I wanted to say, I don't think I got bored just because I was a rebel. I was like that little girl that like is laughing, and like the ballet teacher's like, and now we jeté and pas de bourrée, and I'm like, la 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 la. Like I don't think I could ever get bored just because like I just have fun. I'm almost like whatever. But yeah, going back to
I
it,
love that about
I
I
just
love that
couldn't
about
get
you.
bored
You're
with
so not
myself.
serious. You're just not serious
I'm
about
not
dance. I
serious.
feel like everything I do, I'm like so serious about it. Like I want to be good at it. I want to be the
I
best.
can't bother almost, but like I don't choose to be a rebel. It just like I think it's just like it's coming out, and it's not in a rebellious way either, because I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just like a little kid energy. It's like that Leo little kid just wants to have fun energy. It can be fucking annoying, I'm sure, but that's what I got, guys.
I
But
love
I don't
that.
know how I got here now. I guess my
Well, we were
point,
talking about,
thank God,
sorry, I interrupted you.
No, please
We were
tell
talking
me.
about religion and how it's kind of the religious voices in our life have
Yeah.
made it feel uncomfortable to like be moving our hips and
Oh yeah, the
twerking and
twerk.
sensual
Yeah.
movement.
So I feel like that, for example, for sure, no one's gonna be like, oh yeah, you're connecting to God, right? Because you're shaking your booty. Oh, this is so erotic. Oh, like you just want to call attention. Like these are probably the comments that most people will say. And I can understand maybe like with the whole social media world, if we're constantly just uploading our booty shaking, I can get why that seems that way. I almost could be someone that might, sometimes pick up on an energy if someone's needing validation and doing it for those kind of reasons. Like I don't think everyone who dances necessarily is super in devotion and prayer and connecting to God. I just know that that's a reality. Some people want to call attention, some people want to be more promiscuous, like, and to each their own. But I definitely know that there's, in my classes at least, I wasn't even putting kind of twerk music. Like it was literally all about finding your rhythm, releasing your pelvis, releasing the tension, learning like the masculine and feminine through like contraction and release, learning to like how to like even connect to your pelvis through the breath. It was like such a beautiful class. And I I don't know, I wish like women who have taken it come on and speak, because I think I once even got a woman who came to the class share with me later that when she had her baby and she was giving childbirth in at home, she remembered my class and started using one of the breathing techniques that I taught so that she could contract and release the pelvic floor, and it helped her give birth. And I was like in awe, and I think like giving birth, like how is that not being a channel for God? Like there's just,
Hmm.
I don't
The
know, like I
pelvis.
think,
God lives in the pelvis.
yeah, I think like there's the having control over your pelvis and sovereignty and all of this, like it's beautiful, it's juicy, sure, it can look super like exposing if it's uploaded on social media in a certain way, sure, but even there I found God. I think even in those kind of spaces, God is like present also in our devotion, in our dance, in our prayer. And sexuality is just part of life and God. And I mean, these are even bigger topics, we're not going to get into all of them. Maybe if you guys want to hear more, you can let us know and we make another episode and we go like into that. But but yeah, I'm gonna give you the mic. Just let's continue and we'll see what else comes.
Yeah, I feel like we just live in a world that sexualizes the female body, period.
Yeah, period.
So any woman who shares a video of herself moving her hips and moving her butt and moving her pelvis, it's going to be seen as sexual, and she's asking for attention. She wants to be seen as sexual, which is not always the case. Like you said, there's infinite reasons why a woman may share her body online and moving her hips, but we're both women's health practitioners to a certain extent. Like we know how important it is for a woman's health, for her to move her body, for her to breathe into her pelvis, to breathe into her pelvic floor, to move
The
those
fascia,
hips
the
and to
lymph.
move the lymph and the fascia. Like there's so many organs that live in this part of our body. Like we need to move it.
Yeah.
And so then I wonder about your aunt, for example, who grew up hearing that dance is a sin, right? Dance is a sin. So to move her female body is a sin, and no judgment for different cultures and different worldviews around the world. But I can never live that from that place
No,
because
me
I
either.
know how much I need to move my body to feel healthy, and
A
I
hundred
do, and I
percent.
feel healing. So, so yeah, I think it's a shame that we live in the world that we do, where it's like a war between women, right? And
And
I
religion
had an
sometimes.
and religion. I
I
had a
mean,
few years ago, I was
yeah.
trying to make peace with the with the Christian religion. I was started going to church again because a friend was pulling me in, and I was like, I'm an open-minded Gemini. I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to change my beliefs about something. So I started going.
Amen.
And I went to this Easter session and they did a little skit, and I couldn't tell you what skit, what part of the Bible, what story they were doing. All I remember is that at one point my friend came out and she was dressed as an Egyptian, and she was portraying like Egyptian movement, and it had something to do with Jesus or whatever. But all I could notice was she was like dancing so beautifully and moving her wrists, and it was this sensual feminine movement. At the end, she got all of this critique that she was way too sensual, that it was like she went way off the point of what the intention of the script was, what the skit was about. And I just remember thinking to myself, there's something so wrong with that. There's something so wrong with that. Why is feminine movement not welcome in this space, in this house of God? And I didn't last there very long, but over the course of the time that I was there were many moments where my sensuality was pointed out, right? We would be having a little Wednesday night church gathering, and I would be wearing shorts, and I'd be told, no, 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 change because the pastor's coming.
Yeah.
Things like that. that I said, no, I don't think it's possible actually for me to make amends within this space, within this specific context maybe of this church. Um, and then moving to Brazil, as you've heard in other episodes, like I've started connecting with an Afro-Brazilian religion called Umbanda. The Mothers of the Waters that we work with come from this tradition, and I started going to the temple. That's not the word that's used in within this religion. We call it a terreiro.
Yeah.
But I'll just say temple because it's easier. I would go to the temple and we'd be doing these giras, which are like the religious ceremonies within this religion, and it's connected to the orishas, the nature deities, and there's always a moment where we're offered the opportunity to get up and to move, right? Because in Umbanda, there's something known as invocação. So like the orishas are invoked, like they're brought into the bodies of the mediums who are devoted. They're like the priests and the priestesses of Umbanda. And but you don't have to be a priest or a priestess to like start feeling the incorporación. Like that is a part of Umbanda that I think is what makes a lot of people feel scared of it, right? The possession, but it's always, I mean, not every terreiro comes from a place of love and light and has that positive intention. There are places that do like dark magic, we'll just say that.
In every
But
religion. In every
in every
religion.
religion, there's dark magic.
Mhm.
But of course, I've only been to places that I feel are genuinely coming from a place of love and connection to God. And and the incorporações happen, and it can be kind of scary because I don't know any other religion where that's a thing, only within Umbanda, or at least in my experience of life. And there have been moments where as I'm in the terreiro and like they say, okay, you can move now. The spirits are coming in and they do one-on-one little sessions, little healings, right? So the Orisha or the Mãe de Santa, who is the leader, she'll
Mhm.
like incorporate and then she'll do one-on-one sessions with each of you, and she'll do like a healing with plants and herbs, and she tells you what to do in your life, whatever. So as this is happening, as the ceremony's going and the atabaki is playing, the drum is going and they're singing the songs, right? I've had moments where I start feeling my body moving, right? Like the force, the ashe, the life force is moving through our bodies, and I start moving. And in our last gira, which was February 2nd, the day of Iemanjá, I went to a gira to the temple, and that happened. Like they started playing the atabaki, they started playing the songs for Iemanjá, they started playing the songs for the mermaids, and my body started moving. And for the whole 2, 3, who knows how many hours, like my body was moving. It was just going, and to a point that I couldn't even control it, right? So that 3-day workshop I did, like I started to feel for the first time my body moving itself. This was the first time it was in within the context of like a religious space,
Yeah.
and my body's just moving. And Iemanjá is connected to the marinheiros, who are the seamen. So everything they talk about is like anchor yourself, right? They said, Naomi, you need to anchor yourself. You need to place an anchor through your spine and anchor into the ground, because when the atabaki would stop, I couldn't hold it. It was so much energy in my body, and I fell a couple of times.
Wow.
And the Manji Santa, the spiritual leader who had invoked the spirits of Iemanjá, she looked at me and she was like, "Yeah, you need to work on centering yourself and holding yourself up on your feet." And so that's been my journey. But all of this to say, like I had never experienced dance as a form of prayer or as a way of connecting to God. I'd never knew about temple dancers until meeting you, Naomi. Like I didn't know that that was really a thing, that you could dance within a temple. Um,
Yeah.
and a way of like connecting, communing with spirit and having these experiences. It's really incredible. But Umbanda is a terribly prejudiced religion, right? Because it comes from, African peoples, from the African diaspora, associated with the slaves in
Yeah.
Brazil. And I noticed that there's a lot of shame here, a lot of judgment for people who are in their sensuality, moving their bodies in nature within the context of this religion. And it's the whole world, right? Like we see this different languages, different words for it, different terminologies, but there is a level of shame that exists everywhere for feminine styles of movement and feminine styles of movement that are associated with God.
Yeah, and I truly wonder what is so threatening sometimes, because I know that there's this big, like we mentioned already, like that there's the over sexualization of a woman's, like the female body, and it's where the temptress is, and if we move a certain way, we're gonna tempt the man, and we're supposed to protect them, from not being tempted apparently or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I don't feel like I'm an exhibitionist or I condone or enjoy just sharing my body in any space and it's not my
Even
thing.
if you did, even
Even
if
if
you
I
did,
did,
like,
it's each person, their own cup of tea, I believe. But yeah, I can say that openly. Like I definitely care about, being intentional with how I let's say dress for my own sake, just because I enjoy protecting my energy and my body. Not out of fear, out of choice, but that has taken time. There were moments where I used to do artistic, creative, naked photo shoots in nature where nothing is really being exposed and seen, but I am fully naked. A few years ago, that was my cup of tea. Nothing wrong with that. Just I think we all evolve, but what I'm trying to get at is like the feminine movement that it's so pure. There's something very pure in just expressing our sensuality and I in my classes I'm always talking about finding our pleasure through our movements because pleasure is a way of healing. Following the pathways of pleasure in our body is a way of healing. Feeling the safety to be in that sensual state. It doesn't have to be sexualized, and even sexual energy doesn't have to be sexualized. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel that there's something raw there to explore, and it's a connection with ourselves, between us and God, and um, that can also be shared. And of course, there's space and time and ways for everything. And we're always gonna maybe find people who see things differently. And I think that, like with every modality and with every religion, like I would want to invite our listeners and each one of us to remember that just like, in every religion, you're going to find people who connect to it from the most spiritual place that is beautiful, and you're going to find people who are ultra blind and just following fear, like fear-led God pathways that are just distorted and not the
yeah,
actual intention, I think. And the same goes for dance. I think that it's a beautiful raw expression and a language and a way, a vehicle to also connect with God, as valid as reading any Bible, as valid as praying in any way. It's kind of like meditation. You can sit and be in silence and not move at all, and you can actively meditate. Who's to tell you that one is better than the other? Not me, because I don't think so. And I think the same with when it comes to prayer and devotion. Um, and of course, in dance, there's gonna be people who, men and women who are gonna use it in other ways, and that's that. But we can't cancel out the beauty and the medicine of dance and the way it can bring you closer to God just because there's some people out there that are, I don't know, maybe doing it from a different place. And
totally.
there's nothing wrong with if that place is coming from a deep need of being super expressive because you feel so repressed. Like seeing people who sometimes are sharing in such an extreme, what might seem to us as such an extreme way, I think it's just a reflection of the deep repression that there has also been. And I have a lot of compassion to it because I know that it's almost like someone has to express that energy. And some of us choose to go that pathway, some of us choose to go a different pathway. There's no right or wrong. It's just experiences in life. This is the way I choose to see it. And we can always be the one who chooses how we're connecting, what we're finding, what we're bringing in, what we're expressing out. Like it's up to us to, yeah, to connect um, in the way that brings us closer to what we want. Not everyone feels close to God, and you know, I I can understand sometimes communities where quote unquote God has been present are not really the safest and the most healthy for individuals who have maybe lived a lot of trauma in them. So it's also understandable, like having a deep rejection towards it and going in a different direction, you know.
Totally.
I do
I
believe
think,
we're all children of God, even if we don't all agree who that God is. Like to me, there is
yeah.
just, all that is source. You can call it however you want. I kind of do believe we all have the same God in the end.
Yeah, I think if the person is still listening to this podcast episode with us on some level, there is some degree of belief or connection with divine, whatever term you use, or else I don't think that this episode would have attracted
Yeah.
you. Um, but circling back to the whole religion, repression of the feminine, and living in the world that we live in today with social media and sharing our bodies online, I think that the big religions today, I think for me, the rupture I was talking about, of this actually will never be compatible for me, is because of the denial of the importance of feminine sexual energy,
Yeah.
right? Like if there is no space for feminine, not just sensuality, but genuine sexuality, like in ancient times, right? There were priestesses, and these priestesses would perform rites, sexual rites, and it was part of the tradition, and it's beautiful. And of course, we're never going to know exactly what happened,
Yeah.
right? Like there's this ancient feminine mysticism that we're never going to know the full story, but I do know for a fact, I feel it in my bones that in ancient times, feminine sexuality was within the temple. It was part of the religion. It was part of a way of communing with God. And now in the kind of patriarchal era of religion that we live in, the feminine is out, the feminine sexuality is out. And so I think I love to see women who are moving, dancing their bodies, being danced and connecting with that sexual life force. Like that is I think the missing element. Like you said, we get to desexualize sexuality.
Yeah.
Like sexual life force isn't just about the act of intercourse. Sexual energy is the life force energy that creates life, whether it's a baby, whether it's, the life force that births a flower. Like it's just the energy of creation. And connecting with our bodies is an opportunity for us to move that through our bodies, because a lot of us has stagnation related to the repression you were talking about. And I think there's still so much work to be done in our world, and just making it not taboo. Like
Yeah.
our Lilith episode, we were talking more specifically about sexuality. Now we're bringing it into the topic of dance. Like dance is a form of accessing that sexuality, is a way of accessing God. And I would just love to see more space in our world. But I think what we're talking about is there isn't that space yet. And so how can I be a being who uses my body as a vehicle to God in a sensual, sexually expressive way, but also protect my energy, because there are lots of forces around us that make it dangerous to be that being, right? So how I think each of us knows our own way. Each of us is charting our own path, and how we do that, and
Yeah.
no judgment or shame for anyone and how they find their way. I think for myself, I still like to fight that force that's like, you're just a sexual being, so hide your breasts, hide your belly. I still love to post pictures of my body online, and of my of my movement. I go to the waterfall, and I'm like, wearing sensual clothes, and I'm dancing there, and I don't give a fuck what people think, because I know that there are forces who look at that negatively, because I feel I live in a now Brazil is a very misogynistic country in a different way than the US, and I feel this part of me just wanting to bust through it. And I know not every woman wants that. Some women hide themselves more to self-preserve, and I respect that, and I could probably use more of that. But I think it's a part of me that's like, I see the body as a form of art. The
Yeah.
body is an art, form of art. The female body specifically, it's this masterpiece. And I just wish that the world was safe enough for women to be able to be in the masterpiece of their body and to move their body without it being so dangerous.
I feel there's a lot
Um,
of like woman spaces more and more that allow that. And I would definitely love to see also just the men holding the space and protecting. Like I've experienced that beauty of when men can support women and not like sexualize them, but more like admire. There's such a different energy in that, like being admired or just being in some way also worshipped, held, protected, given the space to yeah, to just be in our energy, to know that it's okay that we have this side to us, this wild, untamable energy that's sexual, that's sensual, and then, they also have raw, wild energy that wants to be expressed, and they're also super repressed in many ways and carry a lot of shame in certain religions for their sexual desires, which then leads, I believe, to more of like this outburst of kind of like taking something that's been repressed, but like it's just it creates so many unhealthy relationships. I know we're getting so much into sexuality also and religion, which would be a very interesting separate podcast episode. And we're in dance and religion, but it's just, it connects, because dance does have a lot of sensual and sexual energy oftentimes. And yeah,
I
that
think it's an
really
important conversation, and I'm
it is.
happy we did because we have talked about this to some degree in the Lilith episode, but I think that the dance element brings something specific.
Yes.
But I think let's move on to our
Sure.
final kind of portion.
Yeah.
So so now talking about dance as medicine, right? And how dance has been the medicine of our lives. Naomi, how has teaching dance changed you? And how do you practice devotional dance today? How is dance a form of prayer for you, for your students, and for yourself?
So I feel like I've touched a little bit here and there throughout the episode, so I'll try my best to keep this concise. Yeah, teaching dance, I think what changed me, I have to say just thank you so much for what you said earlier on in the episode about my teaching, because I do feel that when I'm teaching, I'm also learning. There's never a time that I've not learned because of being in a teacher position. And one of the things is actually the need of foundations, because a lot of the movement has also been like quite natural for me oftentimes. I remember when I was in my belly dance teacher training, my teacher was like, "Oh, you're just as natural at this, but like slow down and do the basic movement even if you can do it quicker." And I would find that in the basic movement and slowing down, it was harder for me. And I actually, through teaching, learned to be a student of the step by step of going back to foundations, of the importance of being able to break things down so that you can build them up, of how
Mhm.
important it is to be disciplined and, like devote yourself to your practice. And I think that's just reflection also again to way of prayer and to God and all of that. So yeah, teaching changed me because I learned to value, I think, the step by step and the um not skipping steps in a different way, and kind of also just yeah, being able to hold a space where I'm allowing women to connect to their rhythm, to their pelvic bowls, to their pleasure. Um, there's almost no way that that can't change you. Like there's just something incredible, and most times I just became a channel. I also through that needed to learn kind of like not to be the teacher, but to be teached. I don't know if that applies, like kind of like with the dancer thing, but I guess it's more like not being the teacher, being the channel and letting whatever the space needs, like be and bringing that, like kind of just devoting myself to my students also, and letting whatever they need be in the front line and not what my needs are or what I want to bring. Like it's a combination of both, like my inspiration and then the needs and mingling. And so I feel like I've learned to be a better listener by being a teacher as well. um and in a dance world, it's yeah, it's beautiful, it's subtle, it's but it's very deep. I think that's what I have to say about that. And how I practice devotional dance today, hmm, as a form of prayer. I feel like it's definitely it's definitely just present within me, like how I carry my body, um, moments where I can just be in nature without music, and I love praying to the sun. Like when there's a sunset, just dancing in a beach and kind of like devoting my movement to the sun, or um yeah, taking time for myself to like feel my body, taking moments to just like I use certain movements to express um like it's almost like connecting it psychosomatically. So like I'll give an example here, something I learned from the Sufi world. When I have fear, I literally bring my hands to my chest and I start slowly caressing my heart and I start washing away the fear. And this is a movement that my dear teacher Miriam taught us. And when I was like 1 week in a Sufi whirling retreat with her, and I've carried this with me because I think when I wash myself clean and I kind of bring those images of like, washing myself clean, letting like a waterfall pour over me and just washing and then, moving with this energy and you begin to like it's not just moving energy, but you begin to dance with it. And so yeah, this is just ways that I feel like I bring it into my life to also support myself to transform a state of mind or an emotion and transmute it into the state I want to be in, but also by trusting and kind of like giving in. So my prayer is sometimes a mixture of words and also just moving and understanding like in a way that's beyond the mind, understanding what's going on through me by feeling. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like this is my devotion to the dance, and my prayers are just I forgot the word, but I am they're offerings, so they're offerings of my surrender, or they're offerings to the sun, to the waters, offerings to the earth, offerings to friends in spaces that maybe I can be not teaching formally, but just like meeting people and offering them some tool to take with them. Um, and then also when I'm teaching and holding that space, it's like carrying the frequency of going back to the temple, giving that permission, that space. And I feel like that's also a way of being in devotion to the dance practice. But it just starts with listening to my body and taking moments of presence throughout the day. And even when we're speaking here between us, like if I'm suddenly feeling tension, I'll breathe into it and allow myself to move. Like I know for some people this is so informal. We're having a podcast, you're speaking, I'm meant to just be still and listen. But I know that my capacity to listen and be present is going to be impacted by a deep discomfort that I'm carrying and just kind of like clenching my body. So I try to carry that practice of, melting it away and being aware. And then to me, in my mind, it translates as me being into more devotion because I'm also being more present and, being able to be present with the other and in connection to the other. It just translates in anything else in my life. So it's just the way I carry myself. I hope that makes sense.
It
I'm done.
makes sense. It was beautiful. That was really beautiful. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing all of that. I feel like Naomi talking about dance is always a transmission. Like she
Mm.
starts moving her body, and I'm like, I'm in the zone.
Thank you, love.
Yeah, no, yeah, Naomi's got big, big, big things to do in this world with dance. So I'm excited to see and be part of it.
I'm excited to
And
do it with you as well.
yeah, yeah, I feel like there's this seed in me that's still awakening. It's still waiting to be germinated and to burst through. As I shared with you before, I have this big dream. I've always had this dream, right? Ever since I was that kid. Mom's like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to be a dancer." And then dad was like silent about it. And I think that that seed went deep into the soil. And even though I've danced since then, I think the seed is like returning to be a possibility of a life path, even if it's not being a professional dancer for, a corps de ballet, at least being able to dance in other ways and bring it into life purpose, into mission. And so I'm really grateful that I'm with Naomi because she has kind of brought this part of me back alive, even though we're not offering dance now, and I probably won't offer dance as a teacher for a long time. I know that that's a big part of my path. Um, and I think the process I'm going through in my own body now of returning to dance as a form of prayer, I was going to say that that's not actually how I live all the time, right? So I think Naomi lives all the time as dance as prayer. For myself, I still often fall back into old ways of experiencing dance as this is a workout. This is how I move my body. And I think that's a beautiful part of dance as well, like to be able to sweat and move your body. Um, but I think moving beyond that into dance as prayer, it's something I have to actively do. I still actively have to put myself into that devotional space. And I'm starting to live now from this place of I'm one being in a grid. And this grid, it's like connecting me to the tree over there. It's connecting me to the ocean over there. It's connecting me to the mountain over there. And that me dancing is a form of creating energy and moving it to the mountain, moving it to the ocean. And I'm receiving, right? Like we are beings not in isolation, but in connection to all things. And whether we're choosing to write or we're choosing to sing or we're choosing to dance or we're choosing whatever it is that we use as our form of expression, it's moving energy between us and all the other beings around us in that grid. And I know that intellectually, but living from that is another thing because the world we live in cuts us off from the connection and the interconnectedness with all living beings. And so to answer the questions, like how do I practice devotional dance today? It's actually a practice. Like it's not I live from this place all the time, but it's a practice of remembering that when I move my arm, it's not just for me to work out, it's not just for me to heal my spine, but it's also for me to connect with the livingness of that tree, with the livingness of the ocean. And I'm feeling this yearning within me to start creating that structure that I so desire but struggle to find and place that structure within a spiritual connection to dance. Like I feel this part of me that wants to create forms, like dance, devotional dance forms to connect with the trees and devotional dance forms to connect with the earth and the wind and the stars. So I think that that's something, this is very vulnerable. Like I'm sharing something actually very vulnerable and personal. Something that's still a seed. It hasn't germinated yet. It's still something very new. But that's the answer to my question, the question, how do you practice devotional dance today? I
I
don't,
love
but
it.
I am.
I love it, and you are, and I just want to say like that's literally what it is. It is a practice because to even get to be like living in it, it started by being practiced again and again and again. And there's this quote by Rumi. I'm gonna butcher it completely, but maybe I can put it down in our description if anyone wants to see it. But it's basically it goes something like, you're always welcome to come again and again and again. I'm not gonna try to like say it, but the essence of it, the essence of the writing is that even if you have lost your way, you're always welcome to start again and come back again and again. And I think that's what is my message. Not that this was a question, but that would be my message to anyone that would want to practice dance as a form of prayer, as devotion, as a pathway to God, is you can lose yourself and your way 1,000 times. And God knows I definitely have, I have it so activated in me right now because I have come back to it, but I definitely lost this form of connection for a few years when I was living in Costa Rica. It started reawakening within me maybe a year ago, actually. And it was on and off in different periods. It wasn't completely off either because, it's just years of practice and it's kind of like beyond my control almost. I think this is just kind of like who I am in my essence, but I definitely have lost it myself too. And so I really want to say like it's literally a practice like you mentioned. And and yeah, that's it. It's a devotional practice.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I think I feel complete. Do
Me
you?
too. Definitely, definitely. This is beautiful. Thank you for also, let's say thank you to Naomi Maharaj for bringing this forward, because I, for some reason, was more like are we recording about this? And she was like, yes, this is what we're doing, you know? And so, yeah, just thank you for pushing us to do this, like in the best way, pushing in the best way.
This is like the most Naomi conversation there could ever be. I was like, when is this gonna happen?
I know, but for some reason, I'm also sometimes feeling like, oh no, it's not enough. I need to do more or something. And it's a little contradictory to everything else I've said, but it's the reality of being human, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes we contradict ourselves.
Well,
Just
thank you so much for listening to this episode, for
yeah.
joining us today. We took something away from it. We hope you resonated with our message, with our story, and we'll see you next time.
And we hope you enjoyed your cup of tea if you had one
See
while listening to us. I know some of you do. Okay, big love.
you next
Ciao.
time. Mwah.
Mwah.